Hello, little Vickies. Welcome to my channel. Tonight, I'll be sharing 12 Glitch in the Matrix stories that are allegedly true. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and hit the like button, as it's very helpful to me here on YouTube. If you have a comment or just would like to say hello, please leave a comment below. I always reply. I post every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday by 5 p.m. Pacific. If you have a story of your own you'd like to share and possibly have read on the channel, send it to me at veronica45stories@gmail.com. Link is also in the description. Thanks for listening, and now it's time to relax and get on with the stories. A few years ago, I had a pen pal from another state through a website. We talked a lot with very intense and specific letters for about a year and some months. She told me about her childhood, her high school experience, and what she was going through at the time. Her family, her house, her city, everything. One day, she tells me that she's going on vacation and couldn't send letters, so she sends me her Instagram in case of an emergency if I wanted to talk to her. Honestly, I had tried to find her before on social media, but her name and surname were too common. We were very close, and I didn't like talking to my pen pals on social media, but one day I wanted to tell her about an accomplishment I made. I go to the user she sent me, but it didn't seem very active. She had no bio and only one photo. I recognize her face because we sent pictures of each other. I open the photo and see it was from 2016, and it had so many comments. Weird, she had almost no followers. I thought maybe this isn't her main account anymore, but then I opened the comments. She was dead. Her comments were family members, friends she talked to me about, and they were all giving their condolences and saying how much they missed her. I didn't know what to think, so I try and look up what happened to her. Apparently, someone had murdered her in early 2017, the year we started writing to each other. Thinking it was a bad joke, how could it be? Maybe she made it all up? I keep on writing letters as if nothing happened. I asked her specifically about 2017, though, if it was a good year or not. She tells me a lot of things that happened that year, and that she went out with a creepy guy for a while. I don't write to her anymore after that and haven't received any letters from her, but it still haunts me, and I still don't understand what the hell happened there. Update. After everyone told me that I was talking to the murderer, I got very freaked out. That never crossed my mind. I did some research and found out that they had two suspects, her boyfriend and stepmother, and they both went to jail in 2018. But they released the stepmother a while later and closed the case, saying that the boyfriend did it. He got many years, so he must be in prison still, hopefully. His name or face isn't public, of course, so I couldn't know for sure if he's free, but he probably isn't. Anyway, someone said it could have been a family member or friend not knowing how to cope, and I think that might be the most logical answer. I really felt like I was talking to her all that time, though, but it could be that. I should do something more, try to reach out to someone who knew her, but it low-key scares me. Another clarification is the webpage that we met through asks for ID pictures and a bunch of other stuff for security measures. It's designed for teenagers, so they don't get catfished. This happened in January 2015. I was 3 months pregnant with our first son. My ex-husband woke me extremely excited, manic, you could say. "Where were you, and what the fuck?" he yelled. It was no later than 4 a.m., so I was very disoriented and immediately started an argument which ended with me really not remembering going to bed the night before. Talking more about it, I realized an extra 2 days have passed. I don't remember the days of the week, and I had a complete blackout. The last thing I remembered was throwing leftovers from the food we ordered for dinner. It was about 7 p.m., and my ex-husband went to get his car back from the mechanic. He said I okayed him calling Uber from my phone, but I can't recall that. After coming back, I was nowhere to be found. My keys, wallet, and phone were there, but I was gone. He immediately went to the only neighbor we used to hang out with at that time, but I wasn't there either. He waited a few more hours and called the police. From what he said, the next 2 days were hell. The hospital kept calling, I'm a nurse, and friends I made plans with called, and no one had any idea where I was. On the 3rd day, I just appeared in our bed in jammies. The door was locked, and my ex-husband didn't even sleep. He was drinking and walking around the house all night. I didn't lose my job, and we had no problems with authorities, but to this day, I can't figure out what could have happened. This happened 2 days ago. I was at my home because of quarantine, and according to me, I was sleeping. When I woke up, my mom was looking at me, having a very shocked and worried expression and tears in her eyes. She asked me where the hell I was, and I said that I was sleeping right here in my bed. She didn't believe me and said she checked and I wasn't there. So apparently, my family woke up in the morning and I didn't come for breakfast. My dad came into my room and just saw the blanket and pillow. I do sleep with a blanket on my face. Then my mom came to wake me up and took the blanket off and no one was there. Then she panicked and told my dad. They searched the entire house and tried calling me and nothing worked. Then they asked the neighbors if they had seen me leaving, but the neighbors couldn't help either. My mom was very afraid at that point, and they called the police, and that's when my dad had went to file a report, and I woke up. We called my dad and told him I was back, and he wanted an explanation, and I couldn't give one. I said I was just sleeping, and then I woke up, and this whole thing has happened. I wanted to make it clear that I do sleep with a blanket covering my entire body, and my mom did make it clear that she took the blanket off, and no one was there. We are all very shaken. We were all completely sober, as a quick preface. I'm driving home from my lunch break, so I'm using Siri to talk. Hopefully this makes sense. So back in the summer, we had a huge friend trip to Lake Powell. For anyone who's been there, you know it's absolutely beautiful. Anyways, we were boating through the canyons and going deeper and deeper into the canyons in Lake Powell. At one point, I thought in my mind something along the lines of, damn, this place is so beautiful, it almost looks fake, or like it was designed to look this way by something. When I started saying that in my mind, a friend turned around to me and said, dude, it feels like we're in a movie and we're looking at movie props. It looks so fake. And I turned around and looked and said, dude, what the fuck did you just say? I was thinking the exact same thing. We were both freaking out about it, but then it got a little freakier. We were sitting at the back of the boat looking at our 10 or so friends standing up while the boat was slowly going through canyons, and as I watched them, looking at the scenery, I experienced an altered state of consciousness. The best way to describe it is the facade of the human experience was dropped, and all of a sudden my friends looked like gods or angelic beings experiencing Earth and just enjoying the moment. My friend turned to me and said, dude, look at our friends. They're so beautiful and alive. They look like angels. And I knew at that moment we were both experiencing the same thing. The best way to describe what we saw is it looked like we placed ourselves in a video game and were enjoying what we created. It's super hard to describe this experience. If you've seen Maze Runner, you know how they make you forget everything before you go into the maze, but yet you had an existence before. It felt like that. That nature of reality teased us and slightly withdrew, and we saw our friends and this earth for what it could truly be for a brief moment in time. Edit. I heard a story of a man who experienced something similar where at random times he also would tap into this outside reality whilst being sober. He came up with a theory that human consciousness and our brains can act like a needle finding the groove on a vinyl record. Once we tune it specifically and find ourselves in this groove, music can be played, or in other words, we can start experiencing some fascinating things. I have to find where I read this, though, but supposedly it happens randomly to a lot of people. The year was 2011. I was in med school while my brother joined engineering college in the same city. My brother is 3 years younger than me. One day I asked him to come to my hostel as it was his free day from college. He used to come on his free day as he missed family. We were chatting and having food while he suddenly asked me about a girl. Here's the conversation. Brother: do you remember Nisha? Me: Nisha? Who? Brother: it seems like you've forgotten her. Good for you. Me, visibly confused: which Nisha are you talking about? Brother: don't try so hard, brother. You know exactly about who I'm talking about. Just leave it if it's still hurting you. I shouldn't have brought her up. Me, thinking he's pulling my leg, I started to play along. Yeah, I remember. I forgot her. I was bitter. I'm not in touch with her. Brother: it's not like you can be in touch with her anyway. Me, trying to play along. Yeah, she's probably married by now. Brother, visibly confused: now, what Nisha are you talking about? Me: the same one you're talking about. Brother: just leave it then. Me: yeah. After 30 minutes or so, and lunch is over, my brother says, do you really not remember her, Nisha? Me, tired of this game, agitated: bro, stop this game. It's not funny anymore. I'm tired of this stupid game. Brother: what game? Me: I don't really know Nisha. Who is she? Brother: forget it. And he left for the day. I asked my mom after a few days about Nisha. She was distraught when I asked about her. After a few moments, she told me that she was my girlfriend while I was in school. She was my brother's best friend, and she died in a car accident a few years back. I was dumbfounded. I don't even recall her name, her face, any memory, nothing. Her memory is totally wiped from me. I was disturbed and went back home where my mom showed me a picture where I was with a girl and my brother. I don't even remember the girl. In some cases of PTSD, selective amnesia happens, but that repressed memory can be triggered by related memory. But in this case, I didn't even recall her. I was agitated because I don't remember her. To this day, I don't recall anything. According to my family, we were very close. I didn't try to ask her family or any other people because it seems insensitive. Do you guys know the whole theory about how when people die in one timeline, they shift into another? I think that may have happened to me. Back in early July of this year, my family were going on a road trip to Montana to visit our grandparents. Prior to the trip, I had a horrible, horrible feeling about going. I kept having flashes of car accidents in my head, and I was sure that we were going to get in one if we left. It was so strange because I have a pretty severe anxiety disorder, but this didn't feel like my anxiety at all. And I never have anxiety about road trips. I love them. So we left Saturday of that week. I had told my parents I had a bad feeling about driving up there, but they dismissed me as being anxious. but I had never felt so certain about something in my life. Getting into that car felt like signing my death sentence. So we get about 6 hours in, and at this point I start to think I was being ridiculous, and a wave of calmness just washes over me. This is where shit gets strange. My dad passes an underpass, and everything just shifts. I feel like I saw everything in slow motion for a whole 4 or so minutes. My parents were joking beforehand, but their faces moved so slowly, and then the light in the car started to shift. This was the scary part, because I thought I must have been going insane. For a few seconds, there was a huge illumination of light into our car, and I looked at my family and could not tell who they were or what they meant to me, and then it's like everything just came back. The light shifted back, and I knew who everyone was, but it felt like something imperceptible had changed. I closed my eyes and tried to make sense of the past few minutes, and when I reached back to remember, I saw blood, our car and another minivan in shambles on the side of the highway right beyond the underpass, and mangled bodies. I remembered sensations I should not have known, what spattered brain matter looks like, the smell of something burning, the way I couldn't breathe. But this never happened. Yet I remember that the car in front of us had switched lanes even though there was a truck in front of us, realized it at the last second, and hit us with a lateral impact. I have no history of psychosis, and I've never been in any sort of car accident. This wasn't PTSD, and I have never had anxiety over being in the car in any sort of way prior to this. And maybe I could have just brushed it off, but I still think about it when I'm driving in my own car, and it's made me a more cautious driver. I don't know what happened. It was just a weird situation, and I remember having the distinct feeling in that moment that I had died in some sense. I'm not a spiritually sensitive person by any means. I'm a scientist at heart, but this was truly something I cannot explain, and I fully accept that I might be reading too much into this, and for some reason I imagined an event that never happened, but I thought I would share anyway. This Wednesday, on the way to work, I went to my usual gas station. I go there every day, 5 days a week. I go in and everything is different. All new drink stations have been installed and the food area is completely redone. None of this was different Tuesday morning, and I couldn't believe that they'd redone a gas station in one night. I then go outside and see that 2 gas pumps are completely gone and there are mulch bags stacked up taking up all the space. None of this was there the day before. I then leave and head to work and somehow turn on the wrong street and get lost. I've been driving these neighborhoods for months, and suddenly I'm lost trying to find my job. I get to work a few minutes later and I'm panicking. I know it's silly, but I've always feared changing timelines. My fiancé and I have a timeline safe word, so we know we are together. I call and ask him, and he has no idea what I'm talking about. We just talked about it at the end of January, and we've had it established for a while. I've even woken him up at night and asked him after having a nightmare, and he's known. But now he has no idea what I'm talking about. Then the girls start coming downstairs. I work in an addictions group home, and one girl keeps saying how confused she is and how nothing makes sense today. Later in the day, another kept saying all she wanted to do was cry and she had no idea why. Then, while running errands, I go down the same street I always do, and suddenly there are 4 houses gone and a grove of trees planted. I've never seen them before and really start freaking. They are next to a building my family owned for the last 20 years. I know the whole neighborhood. My final straw was calling my mom today. She said my sister was going out tonight with her friend Jenna. I have known Jenna since 2003. I asked how much longer until Jenna has her baby. My mom goes silent and asks what the heck I'm talking about. She says she's never been pregnant. I look her up online, nothing. I asked my sister just a half hour ago, and she laughs in my face and says Jenna is infertile and will never have kids. I literally remember the day my sister told me she was pregnant. She told me to guess who, and Jenna was my third guess. What the hell is happening to my life? Edit. Update. I really appreciate all the support and kind words people have had for me. This whole experience has been very scary for me. As for a few questions I've had, it's getting hard to keep up. I'm going to answer them here. I've already taken an extensive online schizophrenia test on Friday night. It said that I'm fine and very low probability of it. As for CO2 poisoning, I have no gas in my home or the home I work in. Everything is electric. I opened up to my fiancé and had him read this. He knew it had happened but didn't know how upset I was. I asked him if I'd shown any signs of mental instability or Alzheimer's. I'm only 25, and he said I've never shown any signs and only some mild anxiety when things get crazy. Lastly, the safe word and things leading up to the day. We created the safe word mostly as a joke after I read the Berenstein Bears theory, and I had a really weird day at my old job. It became more used when I'd have nightmares and when I made jokes. The day before was a normal Tuesday. Wake up, work, home, eat, sleep. The only strange thing about the day was that I thought I'd heard a scream or yell as I was falling asleep. I blew it off and still kind of blow it off as some sort of sleep paralysis or dreamy moment. My little sister-in-law is 15 years old, and since 4 years ago, when we met, she has been, all I can describe it as, manifesting. They're always small details, but they happen so often that you can't ignore it. The first time I witnessed it was when our grocery delivery was postponed by 1 day. On the day it was postponed to, sister-in-law comes up to me and says, "Wouldn't it be funny if our delivery got postponed again?" 2 minutes later, I get a phone call that their delivery guy had been slow on his route and will be getting ours tomorrow. Another instance was when we had a power cut and she walks by me and asks, "Hey, do you think our power will be out all night?" "I don't know. We haven't heard anything about it at all." "Well, hopefully it comes back on real soon." And just as she says it, on comes the power as soon as she starts walking away from me. There was a time when we were sitting at the kitchen bench eating breakfast. She was researching chicken pox, and then she says, "Wouldn't it be funny if one of our nieces got chicken pox?" And about a day later, of course, without fail, niece's mom calls and asks the mother-in-law for an at-home itch remedy since the niece has chicken pox. Okay, you can clearly see where I'm going with this. There was, of course, one event that shook me up the most. When I had started dating my significant other about 3 months in, my sister-in-law comes to me and says, "I hope you're still around in 2 years so my brother can name your daughter after me, 'cause I'm special." In the way a child would joke, of course, and that was all it was to me. However, it stuck because of how innocent that statement seemed. I was diagnosed with infertility in my late teens due to chronic bacterial infections. Everyone who was qualified to make that decision came to the same conclusion. If I was to get pregnant, it'd be a miracle. And wouldn't you know, sister-in-law, of course, wants to defy the odds. A week before mine and my significant other's 2nd anniversary, my sister-in-law and I are having a casual conversation in the kitchen when she looks at me and says, "I would hate to be a mom and have to miscarry. That would be so sad. If you were to lose your bubba, though, I bet you'd get pregnant again straight away." And right on our anniversary, I find out I'm pregnant. But just like sister-in-law manifested, I miscarry before I even get to my scheduled ultrasound. Obviously, my heart is broken, but I power through and ask my significant other if we can try for a baby this time. The only thing I can do is keep track of my ovulation and hope for the best. It literally only takes us 2.5 months to get pregnant, and I give birth to a girl, to which my significant other names after his little sister, even though we had disagreed throughout the whole pregnancy on the name. I wanted her to be named after my sister. I will say this till the day I die, there really is something special about her. Or maybe it is just a glitch in the Matrix and she has somehow hacked the system. Take it however you want. It still freaks me out how accurate she can be sometimes. This happened to me a few years back when I was living overseas, and to this day I've never found a logical explanation. I'd been talking to a friend, and we agreed to have dinner at mine the following night. Knowing I'm a bad cook, he offered to pick up some takeout on his way. About 6 p.m. the next night, he called me to check I was okay with the local Chinese place. I was. Their food is amazing. As expected, he arrived about 45 minutes later, and the evening was pretty uneventful. We ate, watched some Netflix, talked a lot about nothing much. A few hours later, he went home. Now here's where shit gets weird. The morning after this, I get a message from him apologizing that he couldn't make it to dinner last night and seeing if I was free tonight instead. My first thought was that he'd double-booked himself, bailed on the other person, and then accidentally messaged me his apology, reschedule message. I called him to let him know what he'd done, and to mock him, if I'm completely honest. Cue both of our utter confusion when he explained that yes, he did call me at 6 the previous night, but it wasn't to check what food I wanted. It was to tell me he had a bad headache and was going to sleep it off. At this point, I assume he's trying to prank me, and I get a little pissed off. I went to my rubbish bin and took a photo of 2 takeout containers and even checked my bank account to confirm I hadn't purchased it myself. But now he thinks I had dinner with someone else instead, and I'm pranking him to pay him back for not coming over. To avoid a full-blown argument, I just put it down to a weird glitch or me losing my sanity. As I said, the night was uneventful and he seemed completely normal. But if he was actually sleeping off a headache, then who the fuck did I have dinner with that night? Okay, I've been lurking and commenting on this sub for a while and always wanted to post this, but was always too nervous to. Since reading a recent post, I've decided I should share my stories about my little sister. We'll call her Diana here for safety reasons. A bit of backstory. My little sister has Down syndrome. From my understanding about Down syndrome, many people with it are on the autistic spectrum. My sister is considered high-functioning autistic as well as having Down syndrome. Okay, here are the stories. Our mom had tons of difficulties with her pregnancy with Diana and had multiple strange occurrences while she was pregnant with her. The main one being that, at around 6 months along in the pregnancy, our mom walked into her bathroom to find the box holding her wedding dress on the floor. That box had been in the attic since we had moved into that house. No one in the house knew how it got there. Mom started having contractions just after that incident and started bleeding. Dad took her to the ER, and after a day of her being in intensive care and having multiple tests done, my parents discovered that Diana had Down syndrome. After Mom gets out of the hospital, she sits me and my older sisters down to talk to us about this, telling us that Diana will have an abnormality, in her words, and explains to us that she will be different than, quote, normal kids. I remember very clearly that everyone but me was crying. I remember saying something along the lines of, "But none of us are normal." Mind you, I was 12, and for sure my family is not very normal. Fast forward, Diana is born premature. I believe she was born at 7 months, but could be off a bit. Has a ton of medical issues and has to have surgery immediately after being born. She was in the NICU for the first 2 months of her life. We finally get to bring her home after she recovers. She was the tiniest little thing. By the time Diana was about 6 months old, my parents started doing physical and speech therapy with her because she wasn't developing the way a normal baby would have by that age, I guess. I remember we were learning sign language with her until she was about 2 years because my mom was afraid she wouldn't be verbal. Mom couldn't have been more wrong. Diana started babbling by about 8 months, and she'd always just lay flat on her back and talk to the ceiling and just giggle like someone was playing with her. Mom always joked that Diana was talking to angels. Fast forward again to when Diana is about 3 or 4 years old. My mom, Diana, and myself are at a little Christmas party at a place for physically and mentally disabled people, where Diana took classes and the rest of us volunteered. The 3 of us are sitting in these pews waiting for Santa Claus to come on stage so all the kids can go have their photo taken with him. Out of nowhere, Diana stands up and runs away from my mom and me into the crowd. We chase her, and she runs straight toward this older woman we had never met. Diana grabs the woman's leg and starts bawling. My mom and I are apologizing to the woman, saying we don't know what got into her. The woman looks down at Diana and asks her what's wrong. This is where it gets weird. Diana tells her, word for word, in the clearest way I had heard her speak, "I'm so sorry that your mommy left you." The woman starts tearing up and tells us that her mother had passed away a couple nights prior after a long battle with cancer. The second time Diana freaked us out, I was sitting with my mom and Diana when she was about 10. Diana starts telling me how she talks to Grandpa all the time. He passed away when she was about 5, and starts telling me that she met Grandpa's wife. Grandpa's wife, our step-grandmother, was still alive at this point, and that's the only Grandma Diana ever knew, so I tell her, "Of course you've met Grandma." She corrects me and says, "No, Mommy's mommy." My mom and I both froze. Our mom's mom passed away when our mom was pregnant with my older sister, meaning none of us had ever met her. So our mom starts asking Diana questions about Grandma. She asks, "What color was my mommy's hair?" And Diana responds, "Yellow, but not real." Mom goes on to explain to me that Grandma wore wigs because she had been balding after years of battling anorexia, and she's always worn big blonde wigs. So Mom asks Diana, "Do you know Grandma's name?" She says, "Jeannie," which was, in fact, our grandmother's name. Diana had never heard about Jeannie. It's a very sore subject to bring up around our mom, so none of us really know much about her. There have been so many other instances of her just knowing things, like when I was in a very abusive relationship that none of my family knew about, and she once called me in the middle of the night, crying hysterically that I needed to leave my house and come home. After that phone call, my fiancé came home drunk and beat the living shit out of me. I left him after that, and honestly can't say I would have had the strength to leave had it not been for that call from my little sister. Even to this day, she says she talks to Grandma, Grandpa, and other people who have passed away. I was 17 at the time, and me and my dad had just finished our fishing trip, and it was almost midnight in mid-fall. When I was about to get in the car, he told me that he did not want me to sit in the front seat on the ride home. We argued about it for about 5 minutes, and he did not give any good reason why he did not want me to. I gave up and got in the back seat. It was pitch black outside. When we had been driving on the main road for about 2 minutes, we saw a car driving in our lane. Right as we were about to collide, my dad swerved into the other lane, and so did the car in front of us. I heard my dad say, "I knew it," at the very last second, and then I blacked out. I woke up when police showed up at the scene. They helped me out of the car. I was barely conscious and don't remember much after that. Only thing that is still a crystal clear memory is that I saw my dad sitting in the car, waving at me with tears in his eyes. When I later asked where my dad was, I was told that he had flown out of the car window and landed only a few feet from the car and passed away later in the ambulance. I was told the man we crashed into died on impact and also had a 17-year-old daughter in the back seat who survived. I still can't believe that this really happened. This was 6 years ago. I believe that the gut feeling he had was that something terrible is about to happen, and if someone is going to die, he chose himself instead of me. Therefore, I believed he decided not to put the seatbelt on. Also, I believe that it was his spirit saying goodbye, since he wasn't able to do it. This is a topic that has questioned my sanity and haunted me for years and years. I've been seeing the same man since I was in my late teens, and I'm 38 years old now. I started seeing him in random places around the age of 17. I live in a heavy populated area, and I have lived all over the tri-state area. I've seen him in parking lots, I've seen him in stores, I've seen him at events, but the craziest one was I saw him at a destination wedding in Saint Martin about 10 years ago. I approached him at the wedding and asked him if he has been following me for years because I see him all over the place. As you can imagine, the conversation immediately became one of the awkwardest ones I've ever been a part of. He kind of laughed and shrugged it off, but I could tell he knew he was seeing me all over the place also. There's been spans of over a year or 2 years where I don't see him whatsoever, and it seems like it comes in waves. My life has changed considerably, as you can imagine, since the age of 17. I now have a wife and a child. My most recent sightings of the guy was in a store called Bye Bye Baby. I was buying things for my newborn. Within the same month, I saw him in a Home Depot about 30 miles away. Every time this happens, he pretends like he doesn't see me, but I can tell he's as sketched out as I am. The last sighting of this guy was a couple months ago in the store for baby stuff, and that was the final straw. I'm telling you, if I see this guy again, I'm going to get to the bottom of it, and I don't even care what it takes. It's something I've pondered over for so long, and like I said, I question my own sanity. I'm also a male, for frame of reference, and the guy that I've been seeing is a lot older than me, but it seems like he hasn't aged a bit, as crazy as that sounds. Like I said, I know the man is real, I've talked to him face to face, but that still doesn't make me stop questioning my own sanity. Hello again, little Vickies. Thanks so much for listening. Remember, if you have a story of your own you'd like to share, send it to me at veronica45stories@gmail.com. Link is also in the description. I appreciate you being here more than I can possibly say. And until next time, be good.